Welcome. You're watching Rugby with Rifle, a podcast about all things rugby and life, with your host, Danny Pabone and Rifle Scudder.
Hello, tribe, and welcome to another episode of Rugby with Rifle, a series in which we dive into the sport of rugby. I'm Danny here, obviously with Rifle, two tribe members. And in this episode, we're going to get into the history of rugby and also how rugby is organized internationally. So as you remember in our previous video, we had two short clips that showed us three different set plays in rugby. The three plays, as you remember, was the kickoff, also the line out, and the scrum. And also, as if you remember, the clips that we saw were actually from the 2019 Rugby World Cup. The semifinal was played by England and the All Blacks, the team from New Zealand. And the final was South Africa and England. So check out that episode to see the three different set plays. That was pretty cool to see them on the actual field. So, like I said, today we're going to speak about a little bit about the history and the way rugby is organized internationally. But before we do that, Rifle.
Hey, good afternoon, Danny. Yes, thanks. Hi, tribe. We are really enjoying this, getting together and talking about rugby and watching videos. And Danny's putting a lot of work in getting everything ready. So we hope you guys enjoy these videos. It's just a little bit of information. Obviously, a lot of people know absolutely squat about rugby. So it's just good to start with the true basics. And then from there, we'll just build it up. So welcome to another episode. And we are very excited to share this wonderful game with you. So let's take it away.
Cool. I'm really excited to do this episode. I love talking about the history of any topic that interests me. I love talking about its history, so I'm very excited to do this episode. Actually, before we start, one more thing. If my virtual background right here, and we'll talk about this, is the Webb Ellis Cup. Is that correct, Rifle?
Yeah, William Webb at Webb Ellis, yes, that's right.
Okay, beautiful. And this is the trophy that is awarded to the team that wins the Rugby World Cup. And that team was South Africa. Actually, they won the past two Rugby World Cups.
That's correct. They won the one that was in 23, and then they won the previous one in Japan as well. So the last two consecutive Rugby World Cup South Africa has won, yeah.
Okay, and let's see if they go for a three-peat.
They're trying to do that, first team that will ever accomplish that. So we're trying very hard, yeah.
And a four-peat in 2031 when the Rugby World Cup is in the US.
In America, yeah, for sure.
So I'm sure, I don't know, I suspect you're gonna go to a game or two.
Oh, most definitely, yeah. No, most definitely.
That's just a guess from me.
Yeah, good one.
All right, so we're gonna dive into a little bit of history of rugby. So I'm going to share my screen here. And here we go. So this is a little history of the game of rugby. And I was actually trying to find a picture of William Webb Ellis, an actual photograph. But then it's funny because I Googled when photography was invented or created, and it was actually 1816. So rugby was created only 7 years after the camera was invented. So maybe that's why there's no picture of William Webb Ellis. I tried searching hard, but couldn't find one. All I found was a drawing of him. So William Webb Ellis, he is the gentleman who is given credit for creating the game of rugby, or the sport of rugby, I should say. And the game of rugby was created at the rugby school in Warwickshire, England. And the rules, as you see here, were formalized in 1845. And as we have mentioned here, the Rugby World Cup trophy is named after William Webb Ellis. So as you can see here in my virtual background, that is a picture of the trophy awarded to the winner of the Rugby World Cup. So that's a basic history of it. And as you can see in the middle of the slide here, that is a statue of William Webb Ellis at the rugby school. I think I asked you this before, Rifle, if you had ever visited this school, but you said you had a family member that played at the school?
Yeah, my family, my mom's side is from England, English descent. So my cousin, when we were younger, obviously, and he went to school, he played rugby, and they played at Rugby, yes, in Warwickshire. So I myself have never been there, but I do have family members that have played there before. And then just one thing to notice, I mean, at the bottom left, and this is one thing that is, you know, if you look at England rugby, the nation that puts the most money financially into their rugby, they are just, I mean, their facilities and the places they practice. But I mean, if you look at that field there in that school, it you know, it looks like a movie. It looks unreal. It's just the lush green grass. It's just beautiful. Absolutely. You know, if you look at pictures of South Africa and where we play, thorns on the field, no grass, dust and stones. It's just such a contrast. But I mean, there's what their rugby fields look like. And just amazing places there to play rugby. And, you know, you can't hurt yourself because you fall on the green grass. It's absolutely just so green and lush. So it's so different from where I come from. But yeah, wonderful school there. But I myself have never been there, unfortunately, not yet. I've been to England, visited family and so on, but I never went to the school of rugby, no.
Wow, that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah, I was actually looking at photos of the school online, and it's a beautiful school. It looks like a college campus.
Yeah, a lot of their schools, you know, look like that, just a normal school. So that's why I say just the financial backing that the English Rugby Board has, and it's just phenomenal what they have over there. So
yeah, I mean that's pretty cool. And I always bring it back to football, American football. You know, that's well, I wouldn't say that is our number one sport in America. And the stadiums that they build now for football teams are it's a sight. It's like it's just amazing. I mean, these stadiums require, you know, billions of dollars to build. So
yeah.
Yeah, you could tell when a country invests in this particular sport, as you say.
Right. So in England, they have one, you know, main field. Different countries have more than one stadium, but England only has one. It's called Twickenham, and it's the most, you know, progressive field in the sense of they got cameras everywhere. So it's just phenomenal. I mean, so you can't do anything on the field if you're a player and you think you're going to hide behind something. Their cameras all over. They all HD. They pick up sound. They pick up, you know, everything. So it's an amazing stadium to play at, Twickenham in England. That's their home field where they play all their tests.
Now, you're saying that's the national team?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, but there are other stadiums for the
Oh yes, there are a lot of other stadiums, yes, but
okay.
where they play their home field, where they play their tests. When England, the Red Roses, when they play a game, it's always at Twickenham.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, got it. So that's the stadium where they play international play and
Correct, yeah, where
host international teams.
correct, yeah, Twickenham.
Okay. Cool, cool. I have to look that up online and see.
Mm.
Pretty cool. Yeah, the technology at these stadiums are just like mind blowing.
Yes.
You 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 watch, like for me, I watch a football game in the early 2000s or the late 90s, and it's just amazing, the technology with the camera and the different angles and everything. It's just mind blowing how far we've come in just 2 decades. So
Yes.
pretty cool.
Yeah. And rugby now itself is, with it being modernized and professional and the money they're putting into the game. I don't know if you've noticed, but just for example, if you look at the players playing in any game now, international team, on the back above their jerseys, the number, you'll see a little square. Each player has this. And that square is actually, it's likened to a GPS. So that square on the back of your jersey collects absolutely everything that that player does in a game.
Oh, wow.
So how far you ran, what your fastest speed was, what your slowest speed was, your average speed, calories, how much time you spent, which area of the field. So everything now through, technology and so on is recorded. So you'll see when the guys practice, they have the heart rate monitors on them. So you can see if after practice, if someone in practice was really giving 100%, or were you loafing behind someone else? Were you lying on the ground, not doing anything? Did you, and other players went and they kicked the ball, did you stand back and wait for your other guys to do everything? Or did you go and help and chase? So that's just, it would be interesting next time you look at a game, look at the numbers. Behind the numbers, there's a little square, and that's a GPS, and it collects every bit of data that you did in that game. So heart rate, I
Wow.
mean, it's phenomenal what you can pick up from the players now from the field, yes, due to technology.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, very
And
much so.
I'm sure it helps the teams with data, with preparation for the next game and stuff like that. So
Definitely.
that's
So now
pretty
the
cool.
coaches can look, they can go to all the data and they can see, and this is how a lot of coaches pick players about what was your output over the whole time. Were you 80% heart rate? Were you around 40? They can look at things like that and then decide this guy's not really giving his all. Or man, look at this guy's pushing it to the limit every single time anything happens. So that's what coaches rely upon now, is a lot of that data.
Wow, that's cool. Cool.
Yeah,
Technology, it's a curse, but it's also a blessing.
exactly.
It's
Yeah,
both at the same time.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Okay, so now that we have a basic history of the game of rugby, what we're gonna transition to now is we're gonna talk about uh, first the international rankings of the most current international rankings, I should say, in the women's and men's international teams. And then we're gonna get a little bit into the two major tournaments in the world of rugby, known as Six Nations and the Rugby Championship.
Right. Before we
So
go there, Danny, sorry, can I
yes, no,
just
go
just
ahead.
say how rugby actually began? It was they play what, I must just speak right here, because soccer. So we call
Yes,
it football because you play with your feet. So in English countries we call it football, but they were playing soccer at rugby school, and William Webb just decided to break the rules, and he actually picked up the soccer ball and he started running with it. So
wow,
instead of using his feet and playing soccer, he picked it up and started running. And that's basically how rugby began. He picked up the ball, ran with the ball, and they tried to stop him and tackle him. And that is how rugby began at the school. So
wow,
literally, that's the beginning point of rugby, just picking up, breaking the rules, running with the ball, and guys trying to stop him. And that's how rugby was born.
wow. So technically the first ball in rugby was a soccer
A
ball.
soccer ball, correct? Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. I guess William Webb Ellis got bored of soccer and he was like, let me switch it
Yeah,
up here
something
for a
was wrong
bit.
with the game there too. I mean, you sit for 80 minutes and they score one goal, or
Yeah,
many times it's 0-0. You can't sit for 80 minutes and have all that tension in you and nothing happens.
yes.
You go home with a 0-0. So he picked it up and started doing something about it.
It's funny you say that because well, when you watch soccer in the US, I'll be very honest, it's not fun to watch.
Yeah.
And the US has a few really good soccer players, but the really good ones go to Europe or
Correct. They go
you
overseas to
know
play. Yeah.
yeah. So the US gets stuck with I mean the US soccer players still have to be good, but they're
Right.
nowhere near the level of European and South American players. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
so those 1-0 games are only good if two really good soccer teams are playing.
Yeah.
If you're watching two very bad soccer teams, then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
it's
Pick
bad.
up the ball and run. Do something
Yeah.
different.
Oh man, that's funny. That's funny. That's very, very interesting how it started. Thank you for interrupting me.
No problem.
Yeah, that's pretty cool how the sport started. Pretty cool. All right. So let's talk about, as I mentioned, here, and Rifle, take it away. I guess everybody could read this as you're explaining like I said, there's two major tournaments in the world in the sport of rugby, which is the Six Nations and the Rugby Championship. So take it away, Rifle.
Correct. The Six Nations are held every February. So in a normal country, February is known for Valentine's Day, 14th February. But in Rugby Nations, February is known for the Six Nations. So it's a bit different
Yes.
for us. We don't look to Valentine's, we look to the Six Nations rugby. But
So
the
so
Six Nations are
the joke, I'm sorry to cut you off, but the joke in the US is for the people that are born in November. I was born November 18th.
Uh-huh.
Are the Valentine's Day babies,
Okay.
because Valentine's is the second month, February, and
Uh-huh.
November is 9 months later. So I was born on November 18th, so I'm a Valentine's Day baby.
Okay.
Now you're saying in rugby world, I'm guessing there's not a lot of people
No
born
babies
in
born that time.
November
Yeah.
because everybody's watching rugby.
Exactly. Yeah. No birthdays in that month.
I'm sorry, I had to put that in. Sorry, cut you off.
No problem. So the Six Nations are the Northern Hemisphere, because in rugby, the biggest rivalry is North versus South. So you have your Northern Hemisphere country, which are the six, and we've spoken about this before. So there you've got England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland. So you've got those English nations, and then they've added Italy and France in there. And then the Southern Hemisphere is currently, and the competition is being played now, which is the Rugby Championship. You have the three from the South that used to be Australia, All Blacks, and South Africa, but we've added Argentina in there. So those are the four nations now. So these two competitions are the main competitions of rugby throughout the year. You'll have test matches playing against each other. So at the end of the year, November, December, there are a lot of tests being played, but that doesn't count towards the magnitude of these two competitions. And then just the tiers, what we have is you have a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, and it explains it there. The tier 1 nations, which means the top rugby nations in the world. If you see these countries, they play rugby, they go all out. So tier 1 there are the nations that play in these two competitions, the Six Nations and the Rugby Championships. So those 10 countries that are there, they number 1 country, tier 1 in the world. Then you have tier 2. These are all the other nations that play in the Rugby World Cup. So they don't play in these two competitions, but they did qualify for the Rugby World Cup. So I'm just thinking off the top of my head, you'll have Japan in there, you'll have Georgia, you'll have other countries that play rugby, but they're not specifically known for dominating rugby. And then tier 3 are countries who play rugby, but they didn't even qualify for the World Cup. So you'll have countries that are starting out rugby, something new for them. They're trying, they're getting there, but they're just not good enough yet to even qualify for the World Cup. Those are the tier 3. So biggest division, North and South. And then you have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. That's how you separate and divide the nations into the rugby world.
Wow, very interesting. And the governing body of the sport is known
The
as
RRB, yeah, International Rugby Board.
cool. And they're the FIFA equivalent to rugby.
Yeah, they call the shots, and they'll have meetings if they want to change the laws and get people together. They do those rulings. Yeah, they make the choices.
Okay, pretty cool too. So, that's the one thing I don't know. Does the US currently have a national rugby team?
Oh yes, yeah, the US.
Okay.
They call the Eagles, United States Eagles.
Okay.
They have their ebbs and flows, ups and downs. Unfortunately, Japan just this past weekend beat America. So, America currently are not doing too well. They just lost to Japan. But yes, America does have a rugby team. Canada has a rugby team as well. They've been in the World Cup as well. So
Okay.
they're getting up there and playing. They play a lot at university. A lot of people that I've met from Canada have played in university. So they play rugby too. But yes, America does have a rugby team, national team, and they are called the Eagles. So they've played, they've actually played very funny. I remember them playing against South Africa, and they were leading at one stage. They were beating the Springboks. They played in
Wow.
America. They got a penalty. Springboks did something silly. They got a penalty. They kicked it over, and they had 3. South Africa had 0. So America has the right to say, well, we were better than South Africa at one stage. We were leading them when we played them. So yes, you do. We do
And
have
how long
a
ago?
team, the American Eagles. Oh, that was probably 6 or 7 years ago, I'm guessing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
no, before the before the South African team now, that's for
oh,
sure.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but we'll just put that say, hey, America was beating South Africa.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't have to say
Well,
when.
we
It's
don't have to
just a
say
fact.
when.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Wow, very interesting. So, the Eagles are they tier 2 or tier 3 team?
Well, this last competition, they didn't make it into the World Cup, so therefore they would be tier 3.
So they're currently considered a tier 3.
Tier 3, yeah. So they played, even like I say, they play against countries that are tier 2s who played in the World Cup, but in their qualifications last year, and they lost by, they didn't lose far, but they didn't make it. So they're a tier 3 rugby nation, yes.
Okay. And hopefully we're creating the excitement so that they could become a tier 2 soon.
Yeah, definitely. That would be wonderful for them to
Yeah.
qualify again to play in the World Cup. That would be amazing. Yes.
Yes. So yeah, so looking, and where is the next World Cup? What nation is
Next Rugby
going
World
to
Cup 2027 is in Australia.
Australia? Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So they're playing in Australia, the next one.
Okay, cool. And as we have mentioned before, 2031 is going to be in the US.
That's correct. Yeah. That's the
So
one.
I'm definitely looking forward to that.
That's going to be
pretty cool.
phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So now, thank you, Rifle, for that. So now that we know, or we have an idea of how international rugby is organized, now we're going to get a little bit into the international rankings. So on the next slide, we have the most current rankings of the women's and men's team here. So I was looking at this list. It's very interesting, Rifle, that, obviously New Zealand, both men's and women's teams are top three.
Right.
That's very interesting. Goes to show you that rugby is very big in New Zealand, obviously.
Right.
But I've noticed, does South Africa have a women's national team?
We do.
Okay.
They're currently playing in a test series. They're playing, I think, Spain this weekend, but they're not good. They, tier three. In South Africa, everything is. We're lucky to be tier three in anything except our sport. So, but our ladies rugby team is not good at all. So, they're definitely tier three.
Okay, cool. And I saw the U.S. women's team. Woo! Actually ranked.
They're on there, yeah.
It's funny because it's just like soccer. Soccer's U.S. national team is actually pretty good.
Right.
They're
Women's team is amazing. Yeah.
They're usually in the top three.
Right, yeah. They've won the World Cup, yeah, they have.
Yeah, so go women's rugby.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So is very interesting, the rankings here. So would you say that for the men's and women's, this is the teams that are shown here, is this usually the top teams that you would say every year? Or is there a team here that's really has gotten better over the past few years?
They're definitely teams, and I'll speak more to the men. I don't watch, well, I say I don't watch, but I don't watch that much of women's rugby. But for the men, yes, definitely some teams that have come up there. You can see there in 7th place, Argentina.
Okay.
They didn't play. So back in 2000 and the 1990s, the Southern Hemisphere was only Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, and we would play each other. We were the Southern Hemisphere, but we brought in Argentina. So we're trying to add other countries to make rugby bigger, more available around the world. And Argentina have done such an amazing job. Argentina have actually beaten New Zealand. They've beaten Australia, this year. So they have done very well. This coming weekend, South Africa are playing against Argentina, and next weekend as well. But Argentina have just surprised the world, and they're doing very, very well. The very sad thing here for me personally is number 9, which is Australia. Back in the 90s and the 2000s, they were the World Cup. I mean, they won the World Cup. They were top. They were just an amazing rugby nation. And now they're number 9. They're down there just above Fiji. So that's very, you want your country to win and so on. But it's sad to see that a country that was so amazing, because it's actually rugby that is suffering, because Australia is not as powerful as they were. So if you are the best, you obviously want to play against the best, and you got to beat the best to be the best. And Australia now is just, so teams are playing them, and there you can see can you see Italy has moved up, and Australia just going down, 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 down. So that's a very sad stat. But I'll tell you, in the top.
So I'm sorry to cut you off. So what would you say is the reason for Australia, losing its might in the rugby world over the past?
Their feeding system, and when I say feeding system, I mean young players coming up, being looked at and chosen to one day represent Australia. So to go to the 4-year-olds, the 5-year-olds, the 6-year-olds and 7, and coach them and help them, and then when they go to high school and university, to make sure that they go through a good system and they have a good feeding system to get to the top. Their feeding system is not good at all. And then the other problem in Australia is they have another sport which is called Aussie rules. And it's almost like we have rugby and we have rugby league. Australia has a completely different game called Aussie rules. So people are competing for rugby league and Aussie rules. So more and more people are moving away from rugby, and they're going to the other 2 forms of rugby. So the players' numbers are also going downwards. So it's just a downward spiral all around for Australia. And now Can you imagine being an Australian supporter and you losing to Fiji, you losing to Argentina? I mean, you don't want to support a team like that. You're not going to pay hundreds of dollars to go and sit at a game and watch that game if you know you're going to lose, So I'll tell you a funny story. A friend of mine from South Africa who's immigrated to Australia last year when they had the World Cup in France, about a year before, when the tickets just came out after they had all the pool games and who was going to play who, they can say who's going to make it more or less to the quarterfinals. Australia has to make it. I mean, they're such a powerful rugby nation. So he went and he bought a ticket to go watch Australia play in the quarterfinals of the Rugby World Cup. Bought his ticket, paid for it, flew over to France. Australia never even made the quarterfinals.
Wow.
So he paid all that money. If there was one very unhappy man, he paid all that money and Australia didn't even qualify. So that was bad. So that's what's happening to Australian rugby and why they're going down, unfortunately. But I'm just looking at this list here, Danny, literally from 1 to 7 or 1 to 6 on any given day, any one of those teams can win. That's how good, that's how close these top 5 or 6 or 7 teams in the world are. The margin of error on a game day is just absolutely so small. And it's been proven now in the last 2 or 3 weeks when South Africa played against New Zealand. South Africa won, and we haven't won this cup for so long, and it's wonderful. And South Africa is #1 in the world, and we're riding this high. But New Zealand missed a penalty kick. And if that kick had gone over, which wasn't a difficult one, their fly half Damian McKenzie, D-Mac, he missed the kick in front of the posts.
Wow.
And if that kick went over, New Zealand would have won. So it's just one kick that made the difference in the end. So on any given day, these top 4 or 5 countries are just, I mean, rugby is so phenomenal now. You can watch any one of those teams play and any one of those can win. So on the day, it's just the most disciplined team who make the fewest mistakes that will win the game. And that's wonderful. Rugby is at such an amazing level right now that it's just amazing to watch.
Wow. So you're saying that the level of play within this top 10 is a matter of is whoever makes the less mistakes, whoever, all you need is one play.
Correct.
And a team can win in one play.
Correct. One stupid mistake, you lose your cool and can I tell you something? Last year in the Rugby World Cup, when England played against South Africa, and we played them in the semis, no, we played them, their captain chirped the ref. The ref gave a penalty, said, and their captain turned around and he said something to the ref. And you don't do that in rugby. In soccer, you can still go to the ref's face and shout when he pulls out a card. In rugby, the ref blows a whistle, you say yes, sir, and you get 10 meters back. And he turned around and he chirped the ref. And you know what the ref did? He gave another 10 meters.
Wow.
And South Africa, because of the 10 meters that they got closer to the post, they could kick now to post. And they kicked that over, and England lost by 1 point.
Wow.
1 point, because one player lost his cool and chirped the ref.
Wow.
They were the better team on the day. They should have won. South Africa shouldn't have won that game. We were lucky, but one chirp. So that's what I'm saying. You make one mistake, whether it be foul play, whether it be an accident, whether you miss a kick to posts. But I mean, South Africa in the World Cup, the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the finals, we won each game by one single point every time.
Wow.
I used to have hair before the World Cup. Believe me when I tell you that. But I pulled out all my hair and all my nails. 1 point. And most of them could have been just the kick that was missed. New Zealand missed 2 kicks in the final, and they lost by 1 point. So these teams, I mean, Ireland, France, just absolutely, I mean, anyone on the day could win. It's just a brilliant, brilliant sport.
Wow, that's amazing. I've been there watching a favorite sports team in the playoffs or the championship game, and so
It's that close.
I don't have nails, but
Exactly, yeah.
So yes, I definitely been there. So wow, it is a very, very tough game, and it's you. I'm seeing now that American football is a game full of tough men. Rugby takes tough men to another level.
Yeah, it
Uh,
is. It's something
it's
else, but I don't know. There's just something about the camaraderie. There's something about
yes,
the smallest guy and the biggest guy doing everything together. You don't swap the fence, you come off and then attack. You're doing everything together for 80 minutes. You blood, sweat, and tears together. It's just, there's something about that that's just, you can't explain it. You got to experience it.
wow, that's pretty cool, pretty cool. And just the few games that I've watched over the past year or so, and the few clips that you've sent me, you can really tell, as in international soccer, the unity is you can see is there. And, and it's amazing because sports is one of the very few things where you could have two countries that, politically hate each other,
Right,
but they meet on the field and, they're there just to play a sport.
right, yeah.
So sports is one of the very few things that you see that in.
It is. President, Nelson Mandela Madiba, we called him when he came out of prison, and one of his first speeches specifically speaking about rugby, and that rugby had the power to unite South Africa, all the blacks and whites that was fighting apartheid. It was just horrible. And Madiba said, sport is the one thing that can unite a nation, is sport. If you can all get behind one cause, sport has that power. And like you say, countries can hate each other, but on the field, man, that sport just, it can do something. So once again, it's just amazing.
Wow. Wow. I mean, let's end it with that.
Sounds good to me.
Wow. So with that, tribe, I hope you enjoyed this episode, little history of the game of rugby. Thank you, Rifle, again. It was a pleasure to have this talk with you. And I learned a couple of things. It's just amazing sport. And with that, tribe, we're going to end this episode. And our next episode is going to be a special episode in which we will be doing a episode in front of a live audience. So I'm looking forward to that. So
wonderful. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, everyone.
So with that, Rifle, thanks again.
Cheers.
And until next time.
Yes.
With our audience.
Yeah.
So tribe, take care. Hope you enjoyed this episode. And until next time. Take care.
Goodbye.
Thank you for watching this episode of Rugby with Rifle. Remember to press the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet to support this podcast.